Hello, everyone. This is Kenneth Paul Tan. Let's think about the politics of language in Singapore. Singapore today has 4 official languages that resonate with the Chinese, Malay, Indian, and others model, or the CMIO model. The 4 languages are English, Mandarin Chinese, Malay, and Tamil. Of these 4, Malay is the national language, a pidgin form of which served as the lingua franca during colonial rule. The selection of Malay as national language was made during Singapore's brief political merger with Malaysia from 1963 to 1965, and Malay retained this status even after Singapore gained independence, though it is rarely referred to as such. Today, it is spoken by less than a fifth of the population and, at the national level, serves mainly as a ceremonial language used for military parade commands and in the national anthem, Majulah Singapura, which roughly translates to Onward Singapore. With a pragmatically neutral attitude towards its colonial past, independent Singapore embraced English as the lingua franca and a language of government and administration. Since 1987, English has also been the sole medium of instruction in the national education system, which is bilingual in a very specific way. All students learn the English language, which is also the medium of instruction for nearly all their other subjects, and they also learn a second language, which is determined for them according to the race of their father, a language subject that, ironically, is also called the mother tongue. As the national education system came gradually to replace the vernacular schools, where the mediums of instruction had been the various Chinese dialects, Malay and Indian languages, implementing this form of bilingualism allowed the government to demonstrate a fair and even-handed approach to the 3 main racial groups, using a neutral and globally useful language like English to connect Singaporeans across the communities and with the larger world. By the 1980s, a hegemonic view about educational bilingualism had taken the shape of a utilitarian conception of English as the language of modernity that would give Singapore economic advantage and access to the academic, scientific, technological, business, legal, and diplomatic communities around the world. And it would also give a culturalized conception of the mother tongue as the authentic locus of expression, embedment, development, and transmission as far as culture, values, and identity were concerned. In the year 2000, an annual Speak Good English movement was launched in order to encourage Singaporeans to use standard Singapore English instead of standard colloquial English or Singlish, which had come to be regarded as broken English, a barrier to communication and understanding between Singaporeans and foreigners that the government thought would have negative economic consequences. Then Prime Minister Goh Chok Tong explained that, I quote, poor English reflects badly on us and makes us seem less intelligent or competent, end quote. Now, this was an image that he regarded as damaging to the global city's reputation and a threat to its economic edge. Singlish, according to this view, was detrimental to the Singapore brand. But Singapore English, a combination of standard Singapore English and appropriately used Singlish, was just as legitimate and effective as the mother tongue in expressing and shaping Singapore's cultural identity. Many public intellectuals, arts practitioners, and upper middle class Singaporeans, most of whom were wholly capable of code switching between Standard English and Singlish, were of a similar view and argued against the government's denigration of Singlish. Given the Singapore government's pragmatic orientation, all the official languages are viewed as instrumental to some larger goals, even if the mother tongue languages seem to be specially invested with culture, values, and identity. In the case of Mandarin, for instance, its promotion through annual Speak Mandarin campaigns since 1979, the establishment of elite special assistance plan schools or SAP schools, also in 1979, to provide students with high-level learning of Mandarin, and the nurturing of a bilingual but also bicultural Chinese elite in Singapore, all of these have much to do with economic and political purposes. At one level, it was to appease the Chinese educated Singaporeans who felt that they were being increasingly disadvantaged in an English-speaking westernized society. At another level, it was to enable an inflow of economic benefits from the rising economic and political power of China in the world. Singapore was already positioning itself to be, for the West, a gateway to Asia and to China. To promote Mandarin, the government opted with even greater vigor than it did with Singlish to eliminate the popular use of numerous Chinese dialects such as Hokkien, Teochew, and Cantonese. The government believed that without the distraction of dialect use, Singaporeans would become more proficient in English and Mandarin. The Chinese in Singapore would be unified under one Chinese language, and this could generate a shared Chinese culture for countering excessive westernization. The official policy to outlaw Chinese dialects has had some negative consequences. It has created a communication rift between the younger generation and their grandparents. The pragmatic and highly instrumental approach to language has reduced the cultural richness of a diverse polyglot society. But these results have not been sufficiently harmful enough to enough Singaporeans in order to rally counter-hegemonic energies. There has also been a rift within the Chinese community between those who are Chinese educated and those who are English educated. The former often lamenting what they see as Singapore's blind embrace of modern Western values and lifestyle choices. One of the most traumatic events for the Chinese educated was the merger of Nanyang University, or NANTA, and the University of Singapore in 1980 to form the National University of Singapore. The former, the first Chinese university outside China, was officially opened in 1958, built with the money of philanthropist Tan Lak Sai, as well as the contributions of a proud Chinese community that included wharf coolies, construction workers, and dance hostesses. One of the official justifications for the merger had to do with concerns about educational standards and the employability of Nanta graduates. Nanta faculty and students regarded the merger as a political attempt to assimilate the Chinese institution into the dominant English medium university, thereby systematically marginalizing the Chinese educated community. Some Nanta graduates have kept the Nanta flame alive, resentful of what they considered to be an injustice. On the whole, where language is concerned in Singapore, proficient speakers of English dominate. Singlish is assertively used as an expression of identity, sometimes of cultural resistance, even as the state continues to suppress it. Mandarin speakers resent the superiority of English speakers, but enjoy dominance over speakers of still largely discouraged and devalued Chinese dialects. And Malay and Tamil speakers feel marginalized when they observe how Mandarin and English are valorized by the state. English-centered bilingualism goes some way towards moderating these social inequalities.